Have you had situations in your life where a small lie turned into a huge snowball, and now you have to live with it? My freshman year of college, I was walking around campus when some girl smiled at me and waved. I didn't know who it was, but I wanted to be friendly, so of course I waved back. The next week, the same thing happened again. It became the strangest saga of my life. For the next 2 years, when we met in companies, we acted like we knew each other. She knew my name. I have no idea how, and it was too late to ask. I just pretended to know who she was and why she knew me. Finally, towards the end of my studies, I joined the honors program and chose classes to write my thesis. Guess who ended up in the same group with me? That's right, the mystery girl. I was terrified. I could no longer hide the fact that I had no idea who she was. On the first day of class, we all sit and chat, and she greets me by name again. I finally recognize her name from the list, thank God. And then someone asks, "Oh, so you two know each other?" "From where?" Silence. I look at her. She looks at me. Finally, she utters, "I don't know." I have no idea. We just waved at each other for 2 years, and then it was too late to ask. This girl ended up becoming a close friend of mine, and the following spring, I invited her to my wedding as one of my bridesmaids. I became friends with one of the managers at the local bakery. One day, when I told the cashier my order, he told her to give me the same discount they give to firefighters, police officers, and EMTs. I just had my order punched in with the discount. All I had to do was push one button to activate it. They really thought I was a fireman. I'm not. That cashier gave me the discount for the next 2 years. Even if another person served me, that cashier always made sure to warn them, "He's a firefighter, give him the discount." I was in such an awkward situation that I didn't know how to get out of it. Fortunately, that cashier eventually left for another store, and now I happily pay full price. I was homeless, sleeping under a bridge in a neighborhood near a music factory. I needed a job, so I dressed as well as I could, as best as I could, walked into a bar that needed a cook, and lied about my work experience. They gave me the job. I started working the same day. They paid me cash after each shift. I worked there for 3 years, became a manager, and now I love to cook. Up until that point, I had never cooked a day in my life. I was taught by a lady in her 50s who worked as a manager in the kitchen. She knew I lied, but realized I was in trouble. I couldn't even cut a tomato. She saved my life. She never told anyone and continued to train me, even though I sometimes pissed her off, but always tried very hard to do better. After a month, I was able to rent an apartment. I had help from another one of our cooks because the landlords didn't want to deal with a homeless person. I loved working as a cook. I learned a lot and started doing my job quickly and efficiently. In my free time, I watched cooking channels on YouTube, memorized new recipes, and cooked at home. My mother was a control freak, so to avoid going home after school, I lied that we had extracurriculars and math electives. I probably didn't need to lie, but it was safer that way not to disrupt her precious schedule. Eventually, this way of avoiding scrutiny became routine for me. For 3 years, I was a state semi-finalist in the math Olympiads, and in college, I coached the high school national champions. I never actually did any of that stuff. I have a story. A good friend of mine didn't have an umbrella on a very rainy day. One of her coworkers offered to give her a ride home. One ride turned into two, then three, until he started driving her to and from work every day for months. This coworker is a very good cook. He made beautiful cakes and pastries every day and treated her, and she always agreed out of politeness. Then one afternoon, on his way home, he stops and picks up his parents. He happily introduces her as his girlfriend. She was shocked by the title, to say the least. His parents invited her to a family celebration all weekend, and they were so nice, she didn't have the heart to turn them down so as not to embarrass the guy. She came to the family function where she met other members of his family, and he kept introducing her as his girlfriend. She never had the courage to correct or stop him. Long story short, they are now married. I moved to a new town when I was in 6th grade, and the same day I met 2 kids who knew how to skateboard. I lied and told them I knew how to skateboard too. Then I lied to them and other kids at school for months about knowing how to skateboard and never admitted it because I didn't want to be called a liar. So I bought skater gear and a skateboard and learned how to skate for real. I still skate to this day. I'm 27 now. One day I had an electrician come to check the wiring in the rented apartment where I live. He greeted me. "Hi, Ian." I need to look at the wiring and maybe fix something. I replied, "Hi, come in." My name is not Ian. It's not even close to my name. I'm British. We love jokes, and I didn't bother to correct his mistake, so I just agreed with him. And it's not my worst lie. The thought flashes through my head that at worst, this guy will call me Ian again when he leaves. He stayed in my apartment for 20 minutes, calling me Ian whenever he addressed me. I never once corrected him. Weeks passed, and he came back again to do work in my apartment. My wife and I had the day off, and when the electrician came in, I explained to my wife that if he addressed me, he would call me Ian, and that she would not correct him. It would be easier that way. I'm from a small town and was very nervous about going to college and moving in. After settling into the dormitory, there was an orientation day on our floor where we all introduced ourselves to our supervisor and talked to each other. We had to talk about ourselves and our future major. I was 4th in line. The first 3 people say doctor, lawyer, surgeon. At this point, I'm convinced that everyone in college is much smarter than me, and I didn't want to look stupid against their background. Anyway, I decided not to say that I was going to study economics, and for some reason I said philologist. At the time, it seemed like the best thing I could come up with. So now I'm in my 2nd year of a program to train philology professors, and I still can't admit that I originally chose a different profession. In Vegas, at a bachelor party. I was 21 or 22 at the time. We made a bet with a friend of mine while we were at the club. I don't remember the gist of the bet, but the loser had to pretend to be British and imitate an accent for the rest of the night. I lost. I became British. I met a girl who talked to me because she overheard me saying some nonsense to my friends in a British accent. She thought I was British. I went to her house and we spent the night together. I had to wake up hungover the next morning and continue to be British. She said we should hang out again that night. Of course we did. In the evening, she introduced me to her friends who all thought I was British. So I'm British again, but there are more people around. My friends die laughing every time I speak with an accent. One tried to imitate an Aussie accent around that girl's friends, but he was quickly figured out. My fraud continued to go unnoticed. I had to answer all sorts of questions about my life and childhood. I had never been to the UK, but luckily I had studied English history and read a lot of books and watched movies about England. Thus, I had some idea of the country. I got tired of imitating the accent, so I purposely started saying the wrong things about England to get exposed. More fun than admitting it myself. Turns out, 21-year-old American women are too dumb to know anything about England, so they were incapable of recognizing the lies. I guess even today, 12 years later, there are girls who think that the English invented tea and only drink it on Wednesdays, that Cromwell was a magnanimous leader who gave away free pheasants to impoverished Irishmen, that James Bond was written by a guy from India, and that the only reason the British are known to dress nicely is because they are forbidden by law to go out without a tie on weekdays. The accent has become so ingrained with me that when a guy in line at the restroom said something to me, with a very obvious English accent, I instinctively responded with an English accent. He got flustered. I realized what I had done, but just went along with it. He introduced me to his friends, and they said they couldn't exactly tell where I was from. I told them that my mom was American and I lived half my life in Maine, and that's why I have a weird accent. I brought them into my company, so now I had British sidekicks. My friends couldn't believe it. In such a short time, I had become a level 80 Brit. I had fun with this girl again, and the next day I confessed to her that I was not British. She didn't believe me and refused to admit that I was actually American. So the hell with it. I was British for another half a day. Thanks, Maggie, for a good time and for believing in me. That's when I realized I could really be whoever I wanted to be. I was looking for a new job because I didn't want to be a manager at a fast food chain anymore. So I added tech and computer skills to my resume, which I didn't really understand. I was contacted by an HR person at a company and asked me some questions to assess my abilities. He asked questions that I immediately Googled and gave him the correct answer. When I got to the interview, my future boss had circuit boards and chips scattered everywhere on his desk, so I asked what he used them for. The rest of the interview consisted of him just bragging and talking about all of his hardware that was there. He might as well have been speaking Greek. I just feigned interest and said, "Wow, that's cool." I got hired. I don't know how it worked out. I just Google every problem I come across and solve it. It's going on day 543 at my new job, and they still think I know what I'm doing. I'm making 1.5 times what I was making before and am very happy with my job. I didn't want to go to dinner with my coworkers and boss, so I told them I would be having dinner with my wife and her parents. I lied. I get home. My wife wants to go out to dinner. So, we head to the restaurant, and as soon as we get to the door, I see coworkers led by my screaming boss getting out of their cars. What were the odds that we would choose the same restaurant? I'm lucky. Shit. An elderly couple walked into the restaurant in front of us. I held the door for them and insisted they join us for dinner. They were quite puzzled but accepted my offer, since I had promised to pay for them. It was the most awkward dinner of my life. They had no idea who we were. None of us had any common interests, and they ate it quickly, thanked us, and got the hell out. I'm sure they thought we were freaks. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to feed me these horrible frozen chicken nuggets with cheese inside. They were just awful. Since I'm a good grandson, I told her I loved them. From then on, every time I visited her, she would make me that nasty stuff. Even when I was in grad school, every time I visited, I had to eat that crap. Every time I'd say, "Thank you." It's delicious. What you don't do for love,